Alright, hi everybody. I am here with SAFETECH, and he's going to introduce himself.
Hello, I'm Billy. I work with Simplex Grinnell. I'm a fire alarm inspector for them. I've been there a few years now. You probably know me as SAFETECH on YouTube. You've seen a lot of my testing videos, likely. What I wanted to do with Grant today was get together to help you all more understand the job I do and help you get an idea of what exactly it is I'm doing in a lot of my videos that you see, as well as, maybe answer some questions as to what more or less goes on behind the scenes. I've gotten a lot of questions from you as viewers, and I want to answer those and maybe help you get a little better understanding of what it's like to work in the fire alarm industry and understand more what it is we do as technicians, inspectors, etc.
Alright, let's get started. Alright everybody, so the first question we got is, why do people put supervisories on sprinkler systems in buildings?
Okay, what a supervisory is, it's basically a monitor point on a sprinkler system. Now, sprinkler systems have water flow switches and tamper switches as part of the interface device on a fire alarm. What the supervisory is going to monitor is the tamper switch, which basically is a control valve on the sprinkler that can cut off the water to any certain point on the sprinkler system. And if that water's cut off anywhere on the sprinkler, you want some type of notification at the panel that's going to tell you exactly where you're not having any water flow.
What is a firefighter's telephone?
A firefighter's telephone is what you'll run into mostly on larger systems. 4100s offer this option as a firefighter's accessory. What you have is Simplex offers phone receivers that actually plug into wall jacks that are basically on the walls, usually near stairwells at like large apartment complexes, large multi-story high-rises, to where the fire department, when they enter the building during an actual emergency, they'll go to the panel or a set location to where all these receivers are held. We actually have cabinets that we install near panels that hold all these receivers. When I mention receiver, it's actually just like a regular telephone that you hold up to your ear. They're usually red and have a button that you push on them to talk. And the firefighting crews will make their way up the stairwells, and when they clear a floor, when they check the floor to see if there's any occupants trapped on the floor or whatever, or anything like that, they'll plug their phone into the jack, and whoever's working the panel, the commander at the panel, will acknowledge once they answer the phone down there that this floor's been checked off. I actually have done a video on this where I've given a demonstration on, it's titled Fire Phone. Can you hear me? Okay, gotcha. It's basically just a way for safety crews to communicate efficiently and safely.
So the next question is, do you need a license for testing and working with alarm equipment in buildings?
The answer to that is yes. In order to be a fire alarm inspector, you eventually need to be licensed both nationally and on the state level. Now, you might think, if I want to be a fire alarm inspector or a fire alarm technician, I need to get this license first. The answer to that is no, and that is a common misconception. The case with that is you can apply to anywhere you want, any agency you want, and apply and get hired as like a fire alarm apprentice or do some on-the-job shadowing of another fire alarm technician or inspector. Now, what they rely on in order to get your certification is this on-the-job work-related experience. So after so many years, you will be eligible for this. And what you can do, there's the national certification organization. It's called the National Institute for Certification in Engineering Technologies, or NICET. You apply online on their website at nicet.com in order to apply to take the test for this. You'll need to be at least certified to level 2, I believe. Yeah, it's level 2. And once you get that level 2 certification, that will make you eligible in most cases for your state license. Now, your state may or not, depending on what state you're in, it may or not require this. However, you'll need to check with your state and make sure that they most states do require you to have a license, fire alarm license, to work on any fire alarm system within their jurisdiction. So, but after you have your NICET, your national certification, that usually makes you eligible for this.
Do fire alarms work with no power?
Yes, they do. They have what you call sealed lead-acid batteries, which are basically one step down from car batteries, and they are located at the fire alarm panel, and they should, per NFPA, be able to supply the system with subsequent power for at least 24 hours after a power outage. And they are rechargeable, so they do recharge once the power comes back on.
And then also, just a follow-up question, how often do the batteries normally have to be replaced?
Once every 4 years, they need to be replaced.
All right, how often do fire alarm systems have to be inspected?
All the initiating devices and notification appliances on a fire alarm system in any given scenario have to be inspected at least annually. That's one time a year. A lot of the times we go to places only once a year and inspect their fire alarm systems. However, there's other places that we go, usually larger places like hospitals. We can go there up to about 4 times a year for their inspections. Now, what we would do is, being these places are so large, we will split it up in areas that we will inspect. Say, first quarter, we will inspect the upper levels. Second quarter, we inspect like the basement. Third quarter, we inspect the main lobby. And the last quarter, we'll focus on like crawl spaces, attics, whatnot. And each time we go, all of these areas, with each different area being inspected, it's going to add up in the end, at the end of the year, to 100% inspection of all the devices in the building.
So the next question is, what is the point of LED strobes?
LED strobes, they're relatively new in our company. You're going to see these being offered on our newer True Alert ES models, the more compact models, once they hit the streets and hit production. LED strobes, these are going to allow for less of a current draw. They're going to be brighter, and they're basically going to allow for a faster response rate. And they're going to a lot of times be easier to sync when you actually have them as part of a system. They're put less draw on sync modules.
What is the point of chime strobes?
Chime strobes, they are, for one, they're going to be a lot quieter. A lot of the times, of course, our older version chimes, they relied on bells and actual solenoids and hammers to actually sound a electronic bell as part of the device. Now they basically operate as speakers on our speakers, True Alert speakers. And you'll mostly find these in hospitals and places where you have patients or critical events going on inside a facility, to where you don't want an actual fire alarm to startle whoever's inside the facility. You want more of a mellow type notification, to where it'll just notify certain staff members to where, hey, there's an issue going on. This needs to be addressed, without constant, shrill, loud noise being generated throughout the whole entire facility.
So the next question is, what is the standard process of a full fire alarm inspection?
When the fire alarm inspection basically follows a similar process, depending no matter what type of facility we're going to. When I arrive at the facility, I'm going to speak to whoever's in charge of the facility, or whoever's my point of contact with who I need to deal with in regards to the fire alarm system. My main objective is to be notifying the occupants that we're going to be testing, and alarms will be sounding at this amount of time. The main goals of a fire alarm inspection are to ensure complete total operability of all components of the fire alarm system, including initiating devices, horn strobes, whatnot. What I will do is I will first go to the panel, ensure that the system is taking it offline with monitoring, where it's not going to end up sending the fire department once I start sending signals in. What I will do then is usually put the system in walk test if the setting allows for that, and At that time, I'll make any necessary announcements that the alarms will be sounding.
May I have your attention, please? Disregard any fire alarm signals. Maintenance is testing the fire alarm system.
Then I will proceed with going along and testing the initiating devices, pull stations, duct detectors, smoke detectors, heat detectors, pretty much what you all usually see in my videos of a regular standard fire alarm test. At the end, I will put the system back to normal, take it out of walk test, and a lot of you may have seen me do this before. I'll set the system off in regular fire alarm mode and let it sound for a few seconds and then do a reset. And after that, that's how I verify with monitoring that a fire alarm signal's been received by them, and if it were an actual event, that they would react on it as their protocol states. Once the fire alarm inspection's over, I make any necessary announcements that we're done testing. Fire alarm testing is complete.
May I have your attention, please? Maintenance testing of the fire alarm system is complete.
I put the system back online with the monitoring service, and that pretty much concludes any fire alarm inspection on a system on an inspection where I find no deficiencies. Obviously, if I run into any deficiencies, I will take care of that while I'm on site and do the necessary quoting and protocol that I'll need in order to get the issue resolved. And after that, pretty much once I'm done, I do the report and get that sent in to the building operator or the engineer.
All right, so the next question is, what happens if a building fails inspection?
If a building fails the inspection, what will happen is if I find an issue at a facility, I document it on my report, as well as I make a quote for my customer of how much it'll cost them in order to have somebody from our company come out and fix the issue. Usually they can either fix it themselves, or I can quote to have somebody come out and fix it if it's something that I'm not going to be able to fix on site in a reasonable amount of time.
And then what will happen if the building does not fix the problems?
If the building doesn't fix the problems, that's going to be subject to the fire marshal's office, and they're going to be subject to any type of fines or repercussions, consequences that the fire marshal might send their way. It could be anything from a small $500 fine to the fact that their certificate of occupancy could be suspended or revoked, which basically means that nobody can operate inside that facility until the issue gets resolved.
Which parts of the system does the inspector have to test? It seems like SAFETECH only does the alarms.
As far as fire alarm systems, I do a lot more than just the actual notification appliances and initiating devices. A lot of the times I run additional tests on the system, like sensitivity tests and things like that. Now, our company is a very large company, so we don't just focus on fire alarms. We have people who come and test the suppression systems, actual sprinkler systems, pre-action systems, as well as fire extinguisher testing and emergency lighting, exit sign testing. So a lot of the times I find myself helping those guys with issues like that. They'll be there at the same time that I'm doing my inspection, doing their inspection, and a lot of times we collaborate and help each other.
Have inspectors ever accidentally caused the fire department to come to the building?
It has happened on numerous occasions. A lot of the times it wasn't necessarily the inspector's fault or the technician's fault. A lot of the times I've had issues to where when I would contact monitoring, and now this doesn't happen with our monitoring because I can do it all, operate it all on my phone, but if I have to contact the monitoring of another company that monitors our system, there's been instances like where they were having shift change at the time and they didn't get the information relayed to call the fire department if they get an alarm for my system because they were having shift change or whatnot. The information somehow didn't get relayed. So that's caused the fire department to come. Usually what happens if the fire department does respond is identify myself, tell them who I am, provide them with any necessary identification. A lot of the times they're understanding about it. Now, other times they could get a little frustrated, especially if it's early in the morning and I wake them up. I don't like for it to happen, but it has happened on occasions.
So the last question is, what is the biggest fail moment with a fire alarm system that you've had?
The biggest one, I guess, would be a rather more recent one where I went to this car dealership. They had an FCI panel, and basically the CPU crashed right before I started the inspection. Now, when I first came in that day, the system was in normal state. There may have been a dialer trouble on there, but that was it. So I didn't expect myself to run into this issue, but once I started, and I think it was when I set off the first initiating device is when it crashed on me. All the devices went into alarm, and we weren't able to reset. So what I had to do, instead of reaching in and pulling the 120 volts off the system, I had to find the circuit breaker with a ton of Spectre alert advances screaming in my ear, and people getting upset because I couldn't get the system to power down in time. But I eventually found the breaker and disabled that and disabled the batteries, and eventually got the system powered down. However, our company had to come out later and do a complete reinstall of the CPU on the system, as well as a new power supply, in order to get it back to working in proper order.
Alright everybody, for the end of the video, I myself am going to ask a question that I've thought of, and my question is, what is the most not up to code thing that you've seen?
The most not up to code thing that I have seen and tend to frequently see is places that tend to pile up objects in front of the fire alarm panel itself, places that don't allow for at least 3 feet of clearance around the fire alarm panel to where anybody can access it. I've gone to places and seen numerous items like tables and chairs that have been stacked in front of the fire alarm panel itself, and like a mechanical room or just a storage room where the panel's at. These places, they piled all this stuff up because they figured that, well, when we have an annunciator, we don't really need to get to the panel itself. That's not the case for fire alarm technicians and inspectors like me who need to get to the system to work on it. I oftentimes find myself moving those items and spending a lot of time just moving stuff to try to get to the panel to work on it and have easy access to store my tools and move back and forth.
Alright everybody, this is the end of the video. I want to thank you to all of my viewers who asked the questions, and then also a huge thank you to SAFETECH here, who decided to be a part of this video and the making of it and all that. So, thank you so much.
Thank you, I appreciate the opportunity.
Yep. And I guess that's the end of the video. Thank you for watching. Please rate, comment, and subscribe, and have a great day.